My name's Chris Hughes, I'm the security correspondent for the Daily Mirror, and I'm going to be talking to Richard Kemp, a former colonel in the British Army. He's the founder of the Mirror's Honour the Brave campaign. Richard, can you tell us something about the campaign and what its aims are?
Yes, thanks. Most other armies in the world, most other significant armies in the world, recognise the sacrifices made by their soldiers who are wounded in battle, or indeed who are killed in battle, by the award of normally a medal, and the one that everybody knows about is the Purple Heart.
Yes.
We don't do that in the British Army, and our campaign is intended to persuade the government that it would be a good thing to do, and so the objective of the campaign is to have a medal struck and awarded to those people who are killed or wounded in battle in the British Armed Forces.
Mm-hmm. And it's not an uncontroversial campaign. I mean, it's attracted a lot of interest. We know that the Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, is already showing some interest in it. He's backed it already. That top brass on the Army top brass will be meeting to discuss how it should take place, and lots of MPs and lots of families of the wounded and indeed dead, killed in Afghanistan and Iraq have backed us. Why now?
Well, I think it's been a subject that's probably been considered from time to time over history, but hasn't been taken very seriously. I think the Mirror's campaign has really thrown it into the limelight and has caused the Ministry of Defence to give serious consideration to this issue. The reason why I think why we're looking at doing it now is because the huge number of casualties that the British forces are suffering in Afghanistan and Iraq, which are pretty much unprecedented since Korea in the Second World War, has really raised this issue to the forefront of a lot of people's thinking, and we've had very, very large numbers of people killed. We've had a lot, even more wounded, and that's really the main thing. It's great, I should say, to see the Prime Minister giving it the level of support he is giving it.
Just in that introduction, I said not an uncontroversial campaign. I mean, ludicrously, some people have opposed it. What do you think the main opposition to the medal has been, and why?
I think there's been a number of arguments against, and quite frankly, I don't believe any of them stand up at all. And I think sort of two of the main arguments, I would say, is that the medal is costly. And of course, medal costs peanuts. It'll cost a certain amount to administer, particularly when we're talking about backdating, but not a huge amount. So I think in terms of the defence budget and so on, it's not a significant amount, I don't believe. Another argument against is that we haven't done it before, which again is not really true. We have in our previous major wars, World War I and World War II, most notably, we used to issue recognition of the dead and the wounded.
There have been many comparisons between the First and the Second World War and what's happening now. I mean, in visits to Afghanistan, the Mirror itself has described the conflict going on there as possibly the most violent since either Korea or the Second World War. Why, in the light of what I've just said, why is a medal so essential now for both the wounded and the dead?
Well, I think before I answer that question, you mentioned the Mirror campaign. I think I'd like to pay tribute to the Mirror for the amazing effort that the Mirror has put behind this campaign. Every single day for the last 3 or 4 months, the Mirror has published articles and has pressed and pushed and lobbied behind the scenes for this medal to take place. And I think I'm certainly extremely grateful for that, and I know a lot of soldiers are very grateful for it. But having said that, the First and Second World War were very, very different affairs. In essence, the whole of the nation was engaged in winning those wars and fighting those wars. The industrial might of the nation was deployed behind it. Everybody was making massive sacrifices, whether on the home front or in battle. And everyone was a part of it, everyone felt it every day of their lives. Well, that's not the case with our modern wars, which is in many ways a very, very good thing indeed. And it's only a handful of soldiers who are fighting these battles who it really comes home to, as well as their families. And I think when someone returned from fighting in the First or Second World War, and they were bandaged up or they were walking along on crutches or whatever, people knew what that was all about. Well, they don't know what it's all about nowadays. And that's not a criticism of society as a whole, because it's a different situation. But I think this medal would help people to understand what it is that our young men and women are going through on their behalf in foreign countries. we used to issue recognition of the dead and the wounded. There was a bronze plaque for those killed in the First World War, and there was a wounded badge issued in both World Wars, and indeed there was a wound stripe issued in both World Wars. So it's not, yes, there wasn't a medal, but the idea of it and the principle is not without former precedent. And if you look at the numbers involved in, for example, the First World War, we're talking about 1 million killed nearly, and more than 2 million wounded. And again, when people talk about the difficulties of doing it, look at the difficulty that involved issuing those plaques and those stripes for those all that numbers.
In fact, that was the point that you made to dozens of MPs who turned up to a Commons, especially a convened Commons meeting the other day, wasn't it? And we had 2 women there both of whose sons had died in Afghanistan, Helen Gray and Pearl Thrumble, both of whom I think you've met before, and your many visits to funerals and various regimental occasions. What was the most striking thing, if any, about that meeting? Can you tell me, Richard?
I think it was really good to see that the cross-party support pushing forward the campaign. We had 3 members of Parliament, one for each of the 3 major parties, pushing forward the campaign. It was great also to see the large number of members of Parliament who turned out to listen to what had to be said about it. And again, complete cross-party support, a large number of MPs. The meeting went on quite a long time, and I'm told that for that sort of meeting it was a bit of a record that we had that number of MPs for that length of time. So I think that says a lot. But I would say that overall, by far the most impressive and perhaps the most moving aspect of that meeting was the comments made by Pearl Thrumble and by Helen Gray.
Yeah.
Which I think, there was certainly, when they were talking about what had happened to their sons and indeed the need to provide an enduring memory and mark of their sacrifice, it literally moved many in the room to tears.
One of the criticisms that we've had, or the objections, which again I'll caveat by saying I think it's ludicrous, is that such a medal, however we describe it, could be divisive. And you put a fairly strong argument against that, I think.
Yes, I think all medals are divisive, frankly. Medals mean a hell of a lot to people, and something of such importance, to soldiers anyway, and something of such importance to soldiers is inevitably going to be controversial. So all medals are divisive, all medals have arguments, and whether it's a medal for gallantry, whether it's a medal for campaign service, for exceptional service, or whatever it's for, there will be people who think they deserve it and somebody else didn't, and so on, this sort of thing. I think for the wounded medal and the medal for the dead, it is less divisive than most medals because it's very, very clear-cut, a very clear-cut case. You're either killed in battle or you're not. You're either wounded in battle or you're not. So there's no argument about whether you get it or you don't. It's pretty straightforward. And to be honest with you, I think it's unlikely that very many people are going to be vying to meet the criteria for any medal that requires them to be either killed or wounded in battle.
Military top brass will be discussing the medal and our proposals. What would you say to them if you were at that meeting?
I would say that they should get on with it and get a medal issued now. A medal for the wounded, a medal for the dead. We don't want wound stripes. Wound stripes, yes, they existed in the First and Second World War, but we've moved on since then. We're dealing with a different situation now, and a situation in a world which requires more than a little bit of cloth. We need somebody with a proper medal they can wear on the uniform. And I also believe that the award of this medal and the institution of this medal is absolutely inevitable. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen whether the top brass in the military like it or they don't. And I would say to them, get on and issue it, and let's try and avoid a situation where the Ministry of Defence is dragged kicking and screaming into something, when instead they could be seen to be forward-thinking and forward-looking and in touch with the feeling in the country, among politicians, and above all in the military, and get a medal issued.